let's do that because I think we've lost control a couple times. So there are three of us today that are going to be speaking. Dr. Yuka Bratt from Drexel, the Music for Pain Network, myself, I'm at UCI Ensemble, and then Dr. Mathieu Roy will be from McGill, who's also from Music for Pain, will be answering questions. He is quite the mechanistic music researcher, so he'll come with any tough questions, they'll go to Mathieu. Next slide, please. So today's purpose is to talk about the network pilot research program. We'll discuss some high priority research areas, the eligibility criteria, the proposal selections, the budget, the key dates, or budget proposal sections, major pitfalls, evaluation criteria, and then the review and selection process, and then we'll have time for a Q&A. Next slide. So there are three networks, Ensemble, Music for Pain, Audio, Analgesia, that are funded by NIH in what's called the U24, which is a cooperative agreement. And this is the pilot process for, it's a 5-year grant, and then we're talking about the pilot awards from 2025 through 2028. Next slide. So the purpose of the slide, the purpose of the RFA is to support pilot studies that will generate necessary preliminary data to strengthen the future NIH applications aimed at better understanding of mechanisms through which music impacts pain. So again, key things, preliminary data collection, better understanding of mechanisms. So thus far, only proposals for mechanistic research are eligible, and efficacy and effectiveness studies are not eligible. So again, we're looking for small mechanistic studies that will help to build towards a future NIH application. Next slide.
Thank you, Jeff. So then we thought it would be important to clarify for all of you what we mean by mechanistic research. So a mechanistic trial is designed to understand a biological or behavioral process or the mechanism of action of an intervention. So for our specific purpose, we are looking for research that will examine a mechanism of action that helps explain how music impacts pain. So a mechanism can be explored or tested in several ways. So for example, you may want to design or develop an experimental design that would manipulate a target mechanism. Let's say your target mechanism is sensory motor synchronization. Then one of your conditions in your experimental design might require that participants move with the music or tap with the music, where another condition might prevent participants from doing that. Another way to test the mechanism is a mediation study, where you identify an a priori mediator, let's say anxiety, where you would measure that mediator, and then there are statistical models that will allow you to test whether that mediator in fact mediates or influences the relationship between music and pain. Animal models is another type of research that we would certainly welcome, but you can also use secondary data analysis of existing data sets that are relevant to your particular research question. And those secondary analyses could be, for example, be hypothesis generating or looking for an initial signal to see, you know, is something there? Does music seem to be influencing the variable that I'm interested or that I am hypothesizing to be a potential mechanistic variable? The measurement of your target mechanism or mechanisms can vary. It could be brain imaging or EEG, or a non-neural physiological measure such as heart rate variability or a salivary marker, or it could be a self-report measure. Next, please. So the research priorities that we have set for this RFA are of course available on our websites and in our call, but I just want to go over them here in case any of you then have any questions about these. So we are looking for research that might examine the exploration of innovative mechanistic hypotheses of the neural systems involved in the therapeutic effect of music. That could be sensory, motor, cognitive, emotional, reward, interoceptive systems. So any hypotheses or mechanistic variables in any of these systems. All of our applications do need to be addressing pain, so a mechanism of pain. Acute or chronic pain doesn't matter, but it has to be pain related. Second research priority is the examination of non-neural physiological systems and novel measures, again, relevant to advancing mechanistic understanding. Our third one is investigation of psychological, behavioral, or social predictors, moderators, or mediators of the effects of music or music-based interventions, again, on acute or chronic pain. The fourth one is discovery of predictive biomarkers or signatures for music or music-based interventions in the context of acute or chronic pain. Next. We also are interested in receiving applications related to development or testing of innovative animal models, again, related to mechanisms or biomarkers for acute or chronic pain, development or testing of novel technologies. We are also interested in the development of large de-identified data sets of music-based interventions deployed within medical centers to address mechanistic understanding. So you can see coming back each time, the interest is to advance mechanistic knowledge. So as Jeff said before, please, please, please do not put an application together for an efficacy trial. So a trial that would want to examine if music or a particular music intervention helps to reduce pain. We are not interested in, we are interested in research, of course, but we are not interested in receiving applications for this particular RFA. The emphasis on mechanistic understanding, okay? And that is because that's what our networks are set up to do, to advance mechanistic understanding. Next. So then what type of mechanistic studies are feasible, right? Because these pilot studies are for a 1-year period with limited money. We'll talk about budget in a moment. So one might ask, well, how can I even do a mechanistic trial in such a short time with such little money? So keep in mind that the goal of these pilot applications is to generate pilot data for subsequent fully powered studies. So you should not try to submit to us a plan for a fully powered study. Instead, we are looking for innovative ideas that for which you want to gather some initial data, so that you, with that initial data in hand, you can then be much more successful, hopefully, in applying for NIH R-level grant submissions. So the kind of things that you may want to consider or submit to us is, for example, a proof of concept study. Or again, it could be just a secondary, well, I don't want to say just, secondary data analysis is a lot of work too, but it could be secondary data analysis to look for a signal or to generate hypotheses. It could be a single arm study. So your application does not need to have a control group. It could be a single arm study, again, to just look for a signal. And for those of you who don't know what I mean by looking for a signal, it means that looking to examining whether music or your music-based intervention seems to have an effect on your target mechanistic variable. If you don't see any movement in that variable, so any improvement or any reduction in that variable in a single arm study, then it's unlikely that you're going to see a change when you run a controlled study, right? You may want to just test a particular study design. So you may want to test, for example, if the control group that you did select, if you choose to include a control group, is the control group functioning in the way that you had envisioned it to function? It might be that you want to test an experimental paradigm. And maybe if we have time at the end, Mathieu can share some examples of, for example, if you think that your application to NIH for your fully powered study will be a functional MRI study. Those are expensive studies, and you suddenly don't want to run an expensive or propose an expensive study like that without having tested your experimental paradigm outside of the scanner to make sure that all your conditions that you plan to include function the way that you are hoping they will function. Again, do not propose a full-fledged powered clinical trial. That is not what we're looking for here.
Neil,
Next.
can, Neil, can I jump in for
Mm-hmm.
1 second? I
Absolutely.
actually, I think what we should be clear is this pilot study doesn't need to lead to a fully powered study. It could lead to an R21. So it might be you're
Yes.
doing a single arm study, and then next time you'll go to a small pilot study with a control group. So this is a high risk, high reward. It's just kind of getting, it's helping to start the ball rolling, proof of concept, whatever it's going to be. That's just
Yeah.
to put that in there.
Thank you for clarifying that, Jeff. Over to you, Jeff.
Absolutely. So, um, so eligibility. So they have to be research scholars affiliated with an accredited university in the United States. Um, with the new changes that we're all encountering this year, we can have consultants of other countries, but there can't be a subaward with a foreign entity. So for those of you who aren't research to just do this day in, day out. A subaward would mean you're, let's say, University of Vermont, and you want to work with someone at McGill. You could have collaborators at McGill who are consultants, but you couldn't have a quote subaward where there would be a PI at that institution. So there are ways to collaborate across the divide, across the country divide, but again, it's consultants outside of the U.S. would be the way to do that. Early
And
stage
Jeff, sorry,
investigators,
Jeff,
please
sorry,
jump
if
in.
I can add to that, a subaward also means, so this also means that no money can go to a foreign institution. That's what a subaward also does, right? So no money can go so even if you have a foreign consultant, unfortunately, they cannot get paid.
Excuse me, that's a good correction. Thank you. Early stage investigator, postdoctoral scholars are encouraged to apply. Again, we really think mentor support's important. So these are going to be rigorously evaluated. So again, although they're small and pilot, this is NIH funding. So it is going to be rigorous. So just if you're early stage, gather some colleagues. Again, we do want to have multidisciplinary teams too. So again, if it's a single person submitting, that would not meet eligibility and that would be returned back to you. So again, just to be known of that. And then we ask that you be a member of at least one of the three networks by the time of submission. So either Music for Pain, Audio Analgesia, or Ensemble at the time of submission, which again, it's not really to be a barrier, but it's really going to have you be engaged with the broader networks. That's the intent of that. Next slide, please. So multidisciplinary teams, what does that mean? So we've got examples of disciplines, which could be neuroscientists, music therapists, healthcare clinicians, musicians, music practitioners, psychologists, pain rehab specialists, etc. Again, having a broad team science approach, having neuroscientists working with music therapists could be very, very successful. So again, think about getting outside of your own discipline and getting other perspectives. If you're a wonderful neuroscientist, and you think you know enough about music therapy without a music therapist, I really encourage you to reconsider because there are a lot of music therapists and neuroscientists and other scientists on these panels, and they're going to notice if you don't have other disciplines involved. Your proposal will suffer. And then the examples of what a team is, a principal investigator is the person who's the PI leads the project. There are a number of co-investigators that contribute significantly, and there are consultants who offer guidance or advice. So again, there are multiple levels of that. And again, it's helpful to ensure that you put forth a proposal that we're expecting to see, namely one or maybe two PIs at most, and then a number of investigators, and then maybe some consultants. So again, use that disciplinary team wisely. Next slide, please. Other considerations, The primary data collection projects are appropriate, but projects must be completed within the 1-year timeline. So primary data collection can take a while. So if it's primary data collection, think of a small sample size or think of something else that will make sure you can achieve that. If you need IRB approval, that's the review board approval to conduct human subject research, or IACUC for animal research, that can take some time and that will chew into your 1-year timeline. You can leverage ongoing studies by adding a design component or a study arm, which will be really very efficient. So that's also a strongly encouraged approach. Secondary data analysis projects are acceptable. Again, you have to make sure they represent a novel scientific advancement, but again, that could be very achievable within a 1-year timeline. The proposals cannot include high-risk populations, which include, I'm going to go my list here. There we go.
I can jump in, Jeff. Do you see it? Okay.
Yep. Pregnant women, human fetuses, neonates, children, or prisoners. And then no data collection for human subjects or animal research in foreign countries is permitted. Next slide, please. So the budget, this is an all-important aspect. So 1-year modular budget in increments of 25,000, but not to exceed 50,000. So essentially, we're asking for a $25,000 budget or a $50,000 budget. If you want to put forth a budget over 50,000, requires prior approval and reaching out to the PIs of the Music for Pain, Auto Analgesia, or Ensemble before you put your application in. You need a budget justification, so that's where you justify the what you need. So it could be salary, it could be research supplies, it could be participant payments. So again, you have to justify all these things in your budget justification. Project-related travel is allowed, but must occur within the 1-year pilot period. So again, the 1-year pilot period is really the critical juncture. And I would really strongly encourage you, speaking beyond the slides, not to be overly ambitious. Be thoughtful, maybe be a little conservative. What can I do in 9 months? Because things always take longer than you think. Institutional indirect costs and publication costs are not allowed. The use of the NIH R&R forms is required. So again, your grants office will know what that is in a second. So again, make sure you connect with your grants office. And then budgets will be approved by NIH if selected for funding. So there's one more process beyond the teams that we're doing this for. Yoka.
Yes, thank you. So different than our first RFA call that we did last year, this time around, we will require a letter of intent. And that letter of intent is due a month before the due dates. And we'll go over some of the key dates towards the end of our presentation. That letter of intent needs to include the name and affiliation of the principal investigator, as well as co-investigators, the title of your project, the abstract, 30 lines only. It could be less than that, but no more than 30 lines, and your target research area. Please note for the abstract, the reason why we're asking an abstract is because to help you save time. So let's say that you propose an abstract to us for an efficacy trial, that we can reach out to you and say, hold on, we don't see a mechanistic aim here. What are you trying to do? So that we can let you know beforehand, this does not seem to meet the criteria of the RFA. We will not get back to all of you. We are not going to give feedback on your abstract, but it's just an opportunity for us to let you know if you're truly not meeting any of our criteria. And so you wouldn't even get reviewed, to let you know so you can adjust course, okay? The letter of intent will be submitted to Arlene, who is on the call here, but all of this information is in the RFA. So the specific instructions are there. So please go check the RFAs on our website. You will submit a letter of intent, and after you submit a letter of intent, that's when you'll receive a submission link. Okay, so if you're looking on our websites for the submission portal, you will not see one. You have to follow this procedure. So submit your letter of intent, then you'll receive an individualized link for the upload of your proposal. Okay. All right, so then your proposal sections will include a cover page, and the proposal itself. The proposal itself is a maximum of 6 pages, excluding your references. But it needs to include a specific aims page, a significance and innovation section, your approach or your research plan, a description of the environment in which you will conduct this research, and a potential for future NIH funding. So why is it that you want to gather this pilot data? What do you plan to do with this in terms of future NIH funding applications? Of course, your references, and then a maximum of 2 one-page letters of support, and that is not included in the page limit. We also require an NIH biosketch for all team members, all key team members or key investigators, and your budget and budget justification. Now, if you are new to NIH writing, then some of this language that I just mentioned might be a little puzzling to you. So you may not know what a specific aims page looks like, or what it should look like, or you may not know what needs to go in a significance and innovation section, for example. So we highly recommend, if you're new to NIH proposal writing, that you consult the NIH guidelines for writing grant applications. That link is in the RFA, so please go look what is supposed to go in an aims page, for example. And I'm telling you that because we did receive some applications in last round where it was clear that people were very new to NIH writing, and then where the application really didn't meet kind of those minimum standards of the kind of information that we would expect to see in an application. And then, of course, that is not going to review very well. If you're new to NIH proposal writing, we also strongly encourage you to collaborate with at least one team member who's experienced in writing NIH grant applications so that they can help you with putting the best grant forward. Next. So then some of the major pitfalls that we saw in our last round of RFAs. This is not an exclusive list, but this is kind of the major issues that we saw. We did receive some applications for efficacy and effectiveness trial. So again, please do not submit an efficacy or effectiveness trial application because it will not be reviewed or not reviewed well. We also saw some applications that included a large number of outcomes with no identification of a mechanistic outcome or the inclusion of a mechanistic framework. So for example, you may want to write an application that looks at the effects of music on pain and anxiety and depression and quality of life, and maybe 10 different outcomes, but it just seems to be all kind of thrown in there without a clear framework as to why you want to measure all of these outcomes and which are the mechanistic variables that you're interested in exploring. Like Jeff already mentioned, be careful for overly ambitious. So we had some applications that clearly would take a few years to be able to do. So don't be overly ambitious, because not only does it raise questions when the reviewers are being asked to rate whether the proposal seems feasible to be completed in 1 year, but those kind of proposals also run the risk of being unfocused, right? So they tend to do so many different things, and so they may be rated poorly because they appear unfocused. Then also lack of essential details. For example, description or rationale for the use of a particular music stimulus or music intervention was lacking, or a description or rationale for the particular control condition or comparative condition that you want to include. We saw a few severely underdeveloped method sections. Again, here is where having somebody on your team with experience in writing NIH level grants will be very helpful. Some proposals lacked statistical analysis plans or had a very specific, very limited, like just a few sentences of statistical analysis. I see a question popping up in the chat. If we can please ask people to put your questions in the Q&A so that we don't miss, we will not be monitoring the chat for our questions. So we only want to be looking in one spot. So please, if you can put your repeat your question in the Q&A, that would be really helpful. Lack of multidisciplinary team, even though that was emphasized in the RFA last time as well, we did receive a few solo applications. Those applications did not even get reviewed because it is an absolute criteria that your application or your team needs to be a multidisciplinary team. We did then see other proposals where there was no pain expertise or no music expertise. Since this is an application for a mechanistic to enhance mechanistic understanding of music for pain, we would expect to see somebody on your team with expertise in pain and somebody on your team with some expertise in music, of course, or music-based interventions. And then the lack of experience with NIH level grant writing was obvious in some of the applications. Next, over to you, Jeff.
I had one more to add to that list of pitfalls is we know how much things cost because we've been doing research for many years, the investigators. So again, this idea of overambitious, again, if you propose 50 participants or 100 participants with a $50,000 grant, that's clearly not going to make it. So again, just don't feel like it's going to be beneficial to be grandiose or just really work out what you need, what can be done, and what you can actually build from for a future application. Okay. All right. Evaluation criteria. So there are 4 key areas: importance of research, rigor and feasibility, expertise and resources, and future potential. So the question is important. Does a study address an important mechanistic question related to the effects of music on pain? Really quite, we've been saying that repeatedly. Mechanistic music pain. Actually, that's critical. Does it include novel concepts or approaches or methods that will advance mechanistic knowledge about music for pain? So again, think broadly. This is your time to do it. These pilot studies are a great opportunity to test something out that may be really innovative. Thinking this is something I've been thinking for years, and this is the spot to give it a try. Are the methods, study designs, or planned activities appropriate, rigorous, and feasible to be completed within the 1-year study period? So again, you have to do things well. You have to get all the aspects so that you have to be able to collect the mechanistic data. You have to be able to consent patients if you're having patients. You have to work with the animals the way you have to do it. So again, be rigorous and be mindful of the 1-year time frame. Does the PI or co-investigator have the background to complete the project? So we're going to note this is a great idea, but none of the team has the skill to do this. That would not fare well. Does a project involve collaborators from multiple disciplines? So again, we've said that multiple times. Team science. This is about not just a single person or a single entity. It's multiple disciplines. Is the environment conducive to the successful conduct of the study? Does the institution support equipment or other physical resources available to the investigators? So again, there's not indirect costs, but does the institution where the PI is, the grant's coming from, other resources to be able to conduct the study? And then finally, will the project benefit from the features of the environment, patient populations, or collaborative arrangements? So again, this idea of do you have the right skills to conduct the study and the resources in your environment? Do those make us feel like there's a positive success for this being done? And then finally, a big thing that we're all being judged on is, do these pilot studies lead to a future NIH proposal and hopefully NIH funding? So again, we're really trying to kind of have things, the cream rise to the top, and the things that are the best that we think are going to be thoughtful, innovative, a great team, then those are ones that we think are going to be conducive to future funding. Those are ones that are going to fare well. Next slide, please. So the application will be reviewed by all 3 music network teams and external reviewers. Again, we're very cautious about conflict of interest, so we will make sure that these are fair reviews. I've been doing reviews at NIH for about 20 years, and I have no patience for unfair. So please be assured that this will be a fair review. You don't have to know anyone. That's really who you are, what the application is, and if you do that and put forth a good application, you're going to get a fair review. I promise you that. The selection of pilot projects was made in consultation with the NIH, the project scientists who are, this is a cooperative agreement, so they're working with us, and approved by the program officer. The selected pilot applications were requested to submit additional materials for further consideration and to conform to NIH funding requirements. And finally, a final report at the conclusion of the pilot study will be required. So we want to make sure this gets done, that then there's a deliverable at the end of the process. Next slide. So the dates, the important dates. So let's go to the first column. So the LOI date, the first one's August 1st. Application due date, if things go well, if you kind of listen to what we're saying, more than one person, mechanistic is clearly identified, and for pain, you should do well. Then you'll be invited to complete an application for September 1st. And then there'll be review. We're looking to review that in the September, October range. And then is that the correct date? June of 2026? That seems late.
Yeah. Um, hmm, I'll
That
have
seems like
to.
it, yeah.
Yes,
We
I will double check that, but I think that's correct, Jeff, because by the time the review is completed, it goes to NIH for review. Then we need to require them, request that they submit all the additional PHS,
okay,
documents.
okay,
That needs to go back to NIH. That needs to get reviewed. Then subawards need to be issued. Yeah, we're probably looking at that time
okay,
period.
okay, okay. Apologies for not being, I just looked at this again. Okay. Anyway, you can see the same thing for the second cohort, November, December, September 2026. It does take, yeah, I mean, it takes a long time. NIH funding is not for the faint of heart. So, um, third cohort, February 1st, March 1st, December, May, June, March, August, September, June. So you've got over the next 2.5 years, we've got 5 different options. So if you're not ready for the August 1st, don't worry. November 1st or February 1st of next year are available to you. So again, and again, I've done enough grant review. I wasn't sure on the pilot award, so forgive me for Yoka for on the projected start date. So yeah, just prepare for as an applicant, it's gonna take us a little while to get through it and the NIH hurdles to get through that next step. So okay. In the contacts, so ensemble, I'm the PI, but Arlene is the administrator, so she'll be the contact person. Yoka Brat is the, for Music for Pain is the PI. There's the email for that. Auto Analgesia, Deb Burns, and there's an email for that as well. So with that, I think we are ready, if I'm correct, for some questions.
And I
Yeah,
just
and
wanted to add
Okay,
a
yeah,
let's do, yes.
yeah, very, very rapidly. Also, if you're looking for a collaborator with a specific expertise, we have a collaborator database on the Music for Pain website with hundreds of people on it, so that could be useful for you. So I'm just gonna copy the link in the chat.
yeah, thank you. That is very good. Like I saw somebody ask one question is, do we need to have someone with music expertise on on your team? I would strongly recommend it because we had received a few applications where that was not the case, and it was very obvious in the description and in that part of the method section. And so that will then only lower your score or make your score actually increase your score. And NIH, higher score is a worse score. So it would worsen your score. So I strongly recommend that you look for that expertise, look to add that expertise on your team, and then the database on our website, on the Music for Pain website, can be very helpful in helping you identify some people. I also, one thing that we actually don't have on any of our slides, Jeff, I just realized, is that when you apply, you will be asked to which of the 3 networks you want to submit your application. And that is because on our RFA, on the full RFA, you will see that Jeff's network is interested in funding certain, a set number of those research priorities. The Music Analgesia Network is very interested, for example, in receiving technology-related application, amongst others. So each of the networks has a couple of specific priority areas. So please go look on the RFA, which network is interested in funding what, and then you indicate to which network you want to submit. Yeah. Okay, with that, I think we're ready for some questions. And I saw the first question was the music expert, so I answered that one. But the next question is by um, uh, Lisa Gallagher asked, you said that a research scholar affiliated with an accredited university in the United States is eligible. Are these the only people eligible? What about PhD music therapists or researchers working in a hospital setting? And so in our applications, we do make clear that we accept applications of research scholars indeed and postdocs, not of PhD students. I believe, Jeff, right? I need to go look back at our RFA, but I'm pretty sure that PhD students are not listed as eligible. However, I do want to talk to your question about the hospital setting. I would assume that if you work in for a major hospital where that is used to submitting NIH grants, that knows how to do this, that knows how to deal with NIH, all the NIH paperwork that comes into play with submitting. Jeff, I would assume that would be acceptable. We just want to avoid
Oh,
receiving applications from, let's say, a private practice or a small clinical setting that has never dealt with NIH level applications. And you need to be a nonprofit, right? You need to be 503C status, correct, Jeff, to
yes,
submit to
yep.
NIH?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, especially for this mechanism, I think there's some for-profit, you can do a different mechanism with NIH, but this really leans into the kind of thing that, I think we're all looking for, our PhD music researchers and music therapists in a hospital setting. Again, as long as that institution is able to go through the paperwork to get to the submission. So a lot of hospitals, Mass General, the Brigham, are all hospitals, and they have a really robust infrastructure to submit grants. And that's just two examples I know of because I was working in Boston for a number of years. But I think it's a really intriguing application. So I would strongly be open to that. Um, Ensemble is really interested in this idea of the de-identified data sets, and that really comes from PhD music researchers or music therapists and researchers working in a hospital setting. So that could be certainly something that would be very interested in.
Yep, thank you. Then Andrea is asking, how many people do you recommend as part of the multidisciplinary collaboration? I don't think we have a, a specific number in mind. I think you need to think about what is the expertise that you need to be able to convince the review team that you are the, an excellent team to conduct the research that you're proposing. So it depends on what is included in your research. So if your research includes, EEG measures and then also heart rate variability and it's a music therapy study, then I would assume you want to have expertise in music therapy, in pain. You want to make sure you have the necessary expertise on your team related to EEG and heart rate variability and so on. So yeah, there's not a set number. You just want to make sure that what you're doing in your application is going to be able to be supported with the needed expertise on your team.
And the thing I also add is I like to think about the whole point. So think about when this is all the way going to the final study. So this is the first step. You want to start building your team now. And so even if it's a very small effort, you want to demonstrate to the next reviewers, once you get this pilot award, you're going to be successful, that you've had this team working together. So I think you want to start building the team that you want eventually now, because in all kinds of grant review, a lot of the criteria is this team work together? Have they worked together? Have they been able to be successful working together? So this is your first way to start demonstrating that,
Yeah,
my opinion.
excellent point.
Could a,
Go ahead, Jeff.
could the start dates be flexible? No. They are not flexible. That's why we have 5 different iterations. So if you can't make the August LOI date, look to the next one, which is November, I guess.
No, she
So,
means the start dates, not the submission dates. So
oh,
the
so my,
earliest start dates, I would say yes, there's some flexibility in that. So let's say the earliest start date for our first cycle now we think is going to be June. I mean, it might be that you get your award earlier, that you get it in May, and if you're ready to start, I
yeah.
mean, of course, and you have all the NIH approvals in place, you can get started. But let's say our earliest anticipated starting date says June of 2026, and you think, I mean, you can only start in July because you know you're going to be out the whole month of June, or you can only start August. You can have some flexibility, but you cannot push it back 3, 4 months because, again, you need to complete within a 1 year period. And if you start, a bit later, I think we can have some flexibility in that. But certainly, if
Mhm.
you think you're only going to be able to start 3 or 4 months later than what the earliest anticipated starting date is that is listed under our key dates, then go for the next cycle, maybe. Yeah.
Agreed.
About how many times can you resubmit an LOI or application throughout the multiple available submission rounds? We actually encourage you that if you will receive your critique, your reviewer comments. And if you did not get selected for an award the first time around and you want to resubmit a strengthened application based on the review comments, we strongly encourage you to do that. And that's how NIH submissions work. So yes, we strongly encourage you to do that.
Can one of the main project PIs be on your team? I'm not sure
Do
I
you mean
understand that.
I think Rachel means one of us, one of our network PIs or one of our co-PIs. I assume that that's what Rachel means, and if not, Rachel, please feel free to put in the Q&A your revised question. But one of us, so Jeff, myself, or Dr. Burns on the audio analgesia project cannot be on the teams. We did not make that an exclusion or clear last time, but this going forward, Jeff, myself, Dr. Burns cannot serve on any of the projects in any capacity. Co-investigators in our networks will be allowed to serve on teams just because this is such a small world. And we have a lot of people serving as core investigators on these networks. So we feel that precluding them from being part of some innovative research might be overly punishing. However, we are still having some discussions internally right now in what capacity that can be. So we will be offering some more guidance real soon to all the core investigators of our respective
Mm.
networks, because some questions have been raised just in this past week. So we'll make sure to offer some more clarity around that. All right, given the anticipated earliest start dates being conservative, this may not be relevant, but are the funding start and end dates inclusive of a full year? Is there a potential for a compressed year? For example, delays in the start of funding, but a hard end of the award date. If there is a delay, is there a potential for carryover? Okay, these are good questions. Whenever the starting date is that you put in your application, and we are able to, get you approved, you will be expected to complete your pilot project in that year. So there will not be a potential for carryover. However, one thing that we did not maybe discuss internally yet, Jeff, is what if somebody puts June as the earliest starting date and there is a delay on our end or on NIH's end, and now you can only start August 1st because of a delay on our end, then we assume that, I mean, we will honor a full year. Correct, Jeff? Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing to be punitive. I mean, it's all,
Yes.
we're trying to just put some constraints around a year, but no, we are researchers as well. We know things happen. So engaging with us, and we'll engage with NIH on your behalf and work with it. So I really feel like we'll be on your side.
Yeah. The next question is, could a PhD student be a part of the research team if the main PI applies? And I assume that you mean that the main PI has a PhD, or is eligible. Yeah, I couldn't see why that would not be possible, as long as you have other team members to provide the needed expertise.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great opportunity for the PhD student to get experience in research.
Mm-hmm. Do you support a co-PI model where one PI is an MD associate professor and the other PI is a PhD candidate? Again, the PhD candidate will not be able to be a PI. Okay,
Yep.
correct, Jeff?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's where we are.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right. Any other questions? These were all excellent questions.
And I typed an answer to the individual, Lisa Gallagher from Cleveland Clinic. So I typed in, she was asking the question about the PhD researcher or music therapist in a hospital setting, and she's speaking about Cleveland Clinic. And yes, that would be a great spot. You're able to apply. They have the infrastructure to apply for a grant. No problem.
Yeah, and a reason, again, keep in mind that the role of these pilot projects is to help you be successful then in a subsequent NIH level submission, and that comes with restraints, right? So a PhD student, for example, cannot apply for an R01, an NIH grant. So, okay, so that's why we set those constraints. The same with small, practice or an individual person applying for an NIH for the pilot funding that could not move forward. The solo application would never be received well at the NIH.
No. Rebecca asked how many projects will be awarded. It's really going to be based on quality. So we will not set up, we're not setting a number. We all have, each of the three networks has a yearly allotment for pilot funds. But really that's going to depend on the quality. If, you know, if if there are no quality applications, which I find highly, I can't believe that would be the case, then maybe not to be funded. So we really have to have some things that we feel like are going to have some opportunity to make it to the next level. So we would give those we definitely have to be mindful of getting strong pilot proposals submitted, and then those are going to be strongly supported.
Yeah, and then the reason also why the three networks issue this joint RFA, even though you will indicate to which of the networks you want to apply, is to also allow Rebecca, let's say Ensemble gets many applications and there's 4 that are just fantastic, and but they've reached the end of their budget, and like they've have already supported several maybe in the previous cycle, but let's say my network still has funding available, then that application could be funded then by one of the other networks. So it allows us to kind of share our riches, while at the same time allowing you to also express an interest of by whom you would prefer to be funded. And then also keeping in mind the specific research priorities for each of the networks. Mathieu, I don't know
Next,
if oh, is there another question? Sorry, I was gonna
there are two
allow
more.
Mathieu
Yeah.
to also offer input, and because he was one of the reviewers, but let's maybe first answer what other questions we have here. Can you be a PI if you pass your dissertation defense but haven't yet graduated from a PhD program? That's a good question.
I would lean towards
May,
yes.
I would lean towards yes, but I would assume, I would say if this is your particular case, please reach out to one of us. because if we may want to ask for some verification, right? So that you indeed passed your defense and it's not just your word saying, hey, or somebody
Yep.
saying, I am about to pass my defense. So, but yes, because by the time all the review is done and the paperwork gets processed, I assume you would have graduated from your PhD program.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good question.
Uh,
Yeah, and there will be some, probably, I assume there's going to be other gray areas, right? Where you're not really sure, like, could this really count? Just feel free to reach out to us. We may not always have the answers right away. We may need to consult internally or even with our NIH program officer, but we will get you answers as soon as possible.
Last question is, do we need to use caution in regarding specific terminology like diversity and inclusion for this RFA? I think that's the general tenor of where we are in 2025. So yes.
Yes, I would say that's an absolute yes.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah. So, but if you're specific about a population, that is not diversity and inclusion. So again, just there's some key words probably to avoid, but certainly I think you can be specific at a population if you're looking to study a mechanistic underpinning in a population that would make sense.
Yes, and I would also recommend that you consult with your grants administration at your universities or your institutions, because many of them are able to consult on this and maybe help you with some of the language that allows you to do what you want to do, but use language that wouldn't get flagged, for example.
Now I met you.
Mhm.
We've had you here. You're a
Yeah.
expert. What are your thoughts?
But well, I don't have anything specific to ask, but maybe I could reiterate that the important goal is really to help you be successful in eventual grant application. So we have to feel that the project is inspiring, the team is strong. It's also a good opportunity to assemble a new team of researchers. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. I also have questions for you. I can also answer questions from you if you have more questions about specific methodologies or designs that could be acceptable for a pilot.
And I want to, as people think of questions, I want to reiterate what Mathieu and Jeff both said, that this is kind of your opportunity to also put like a new team together, to reach out to new collaborators, because like Jeff mentioned, when you then submit to NIH, for your eventual bigger trial, they like teams. I mean, they want to see teams that have worked with each other. They want to make sure that you will all get along, that you will work productively together. So this is an opportunity for you to be able to demonstrate that and say, hey, this team did this pilot application. Maybe you even have a publication that comes out of this, hopefully. And so you can point to that as one of the strengths of your team.
Another question has come up. If an application is improved, what kind of support could the project receive from the networks? That's a really good question. Um, like we've talked about this. I mean, I think whatever network is your sponsor, they're committed to making sure that you are supported. If you have questions, I think we're all willing to brainstorm with you. We're all willing to, each of your network links are willing to, if you're having difficulty with a process, or if things are you're hitting a pitfall you didn't expect, we're here to help. I would say, because our goal is to have you be successful to then be able to go on to the next level of submission to NIH. So I would say
Yeah, and
yes.
even, yeah, definitely support you with the ongoing project, like Jeff said. But I don't want to speak for the other networks, but the Music for Pain network also will be actually closely mentoring pilot awardees in their submission then for their subsequent NIH grant. that is if your team needs that. If your team is quite experienced with NIH applications, they may not want that kind of mentoring, but at the very least, we want to offer, for example, a mock review. So let's say you plan then you have promising data, you want to submit it to NIH, we would be available to offer consulting in terms of your actual grant writing, but also create or put together a mock review team that would look at your grant and actually function as an NIH review team and give you feedback so that you can improve your application before you submit. Because again, it really is important for the networks that those who receive pilot funding from us, that they are successful in then submitting NIH applications. So we all have a vested interest in really supporting you and making sure that you're successful with subsequent NIH applications.
Actually, that brought up an idea that I meant to mention earlier. It's a good idea even before you submit the LOI or even especially the full application to have someone else look at it. Clearly, your team can be looking at this for weeks or something, but something outside of your team who knows who's a solid researcher but is not involved in the writing of it because you can get so into the weeds, you miss some things that others wouldn't see. And that extra review can be really, really helpful. So just if you give yourself time to have a friend or someone else review it before you submit it.
Absolutely. All right, I see that we are getting towards the end of our time, so I want to thank you all for attending. Oh,
one more question. Will you be
sorry,
using
go ahead.
NIH scoring? Will you be using NIH scoring? Yes. And when should applicants expect to receive feedback? I'm gonna say this has been our first iteration and we had some lessons learned, so we're gonna have a bit more straightforward process. I would say 6 weeks, I think, is probably after the review as no later than 6 weeks, I think is probably the fair amount to say. Because our processes now are refined after the first iteration. So this is round 2 of the pilot award. So I think we've got a good process for us to speed that process.
Actually, I just want to clarify, Jeff, do you mean 6 weeks after they submit or 6 weeks after the review meeting?
After the review. After the review
It
meeting.
will, unfortunately, I will add to that, Rebecca, that it's not entirely in our hands, even if that's a timeline that Jeff and Deb and I would like to have in place.
You're right.
Before we can share anything with any of the applicants, whether it's award or the unfortunate news that you did not get awarded, that plan first needs to be approved by NIH. So we are not allowed to communicate anything unless whatever so NIH then reviews our scoring, reviews the review comments, and then either agrees or disagrees with the selection of the award. So we have to wait for that before we are allowed to share. And so that is kind of what was a bit of the holdup this first year, and especially then with everything that happened at the end of January, beginning of February, those kind of things were severely delayed. But
yeah, you're right, Yoka. Good point. Yeah, you're right.
All right.
Yep.
Well, thank you all for attending, and we look forward to receiving a lot of fantastic applications. Please do reach out to us if you have additional questions.
Bye all. Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.